So hi, and welcome to the U. Nice to see you here. I'm happy you're here. We are doing something called the Lab, and it's where you get hands-on experience. And today, we're gonna get hands-on experience with the art and the science of storytelling. And we have someone here who is a really great storyteller. His name, and all of you in the room are familiar, and you online as well, I'm sure, is Yaniv Katan. He is really good at the art of telling powerful stories, and he's gonna help us understand how to do that ourselves. So where did he get that skill, and where did he come by that? He's had a lot of extensive work with our customers when he was in sales, and so he learned a lot about how they think and about what they need in order to be engaged. He also has done a number of video series here at Cisco, like Rick the Salesman, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. Ike the IT Hero is another one, and there's a more recent innovation series out. So he has a lot of experience that you can look at and learn from. His secret sauce is humor and creativity. And so he's here today to share a little bit of that with us. His campaigns have won a number of awards. And so that's why he's uniquely qualified to help us understand how to make our stories even more powerful. So he currently leads the content innovation team here at Cisco in the enterprise group. So please join me in welcoming Yaniv Katan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Good morning. You know, I've been in business for a while, and what you learn over time is that you can discover a lot about a person by simply asking who his favorite superhero is. So I want to ask you, who is your favorite superhero? There's no right or wrong answer. Iron Man, yeah? Spider-Man? Anyone here? The ladies? Wonder Woman, yes. So when I grew up, my favorite superhero was Spider-Man. Because, you know, the geek kid that suddenly had superpowers, they gave us all false hope. But over time, as I grew up, my favorite superhero became Professor X. For those of you who don't know Professor X, he's the leader of the X-Men. And Professor X's capabilities is to influence other people. He does it in a few ways. So first of all, he's the leader of the X-Men, so people follow him, so he's an influencer. But he has abilities, powerful abilities to control minds and to influence thousands and millions and hundreds of millions of people. Now, going back to the business world, isn't that a powerful capability to have? How many times have you been in a meeting with a person or a bunch of people that you really had to influence and convince them to do something? And sometimes you only have one shot in doing that. So what I'm trying to say is it doesn't matter if it's a job interview or if you're pitching to your manager about an idea or your group of peers, or if you're running a multi-million-dollar campaign. You have to deliver your message with impact. You have to deliver your message with impact. And this is the reason we're here today. What I want to do today is I want to give you a little bit of the Professor X capabilities, a little bit of his skills to influence others so you can become a better marketeer and a better communicator. And I want to make this practical. I don't want to make this a theoretical session. What I want to do is I want you to take the things that you learned today and apply to your own work. So some of the things I'm going to talk about are going to be known to you, familiar to you. Some are going to be completely new. But the secret is, how do you combine all these things together to create the perfect stew? And I'm calling it the 3 rules of creating effective content. So the presentation is going to be divided into these 3 sections. Sounds good? Cool. So let's start with the first rule. And the first rule, rule number 1, be clear. And I'm not talking about being clear to your audience. That is a given. I'm talking about being clear to yourself. And the rule number 1, the be clear section, is based on a methodology that I developed and my team runs. I see some nodding people here. It's called CAMP, Kick-Ass Messaging Process. And this is a methodology that we run across solutions marketing and enterprise solution marketing to create the really strong message that later on creates the strong content. So usually we run CAMP workshops that can take weeks. But I want to give you a taste of the things that you can capture today, simple things that you can capture today and apply to your own work. But I do encourage you, after the session, go to the marketing handbook and read a little bit more about CAMP, because it's very prescriptive. OK. So the first thing what I want you to start with is asking what is the misperception? Before you write a single letter in your content, what is the misperception you're trying to address? And every marketeer will tell you, every good marketeer will tell you, that marketing is about changing perception. You want to take people from point A, their current perception, to point B. That's where you want them to be. But you can never take them to point B unless you know what point A is. So before you write a single letter, you got to ask yourself, what is the misperception I'm trying to change? Let me give you an example. Let's say we're doing a marketing campaign for our server business, hardware that sit in the customer premises. And if the perception of the audience is that all of the applications are going to the cloud, why would they want to buy on-prem? So if I go to these customers and say, guys, we have excellent servers, powerful, speed, easy to operate, they don't care. They don't think it's relevant. But what if I did something else? What if I went to this audience and said, hey, Mr. Customer, I know that you probably think that all of the applications should be in the cloud, and there's no reason to invest on-prem, right? I'll get a nod. Well, I think you're wrong, and I'm going to show you how. What did I just do now? I created a dialogue. There's a place where he and I, or she and I, both agree on where do we start the dialogue. Because if I don't do that, I'm not going to meet the customer. So always start with understanding the misperception you're trying to change. Which leads me to another point of clarity, and that is knowing about your audience. You got to know everything you can about your audience, and that is a given. I think everyone in this room and the people remote know that. But you know, most people, when I say that, they think about the persona. So they think, yes, I need to talk to the CIO. He's 45 years old. He cares about operational expenses, security, talent gap, so on. That is true, but it's not what I'm talking about. Because that is the business characteristics. I'm talking about the personal characteristics. I'm talking about things that are relevant to the human being behind the title, not stuff that you can read on an analyst report. And it's part of the CAMP process. We call this discovering the hidden truth. What do I mean by that? The best way to describe it, which will explain the picture over here, is that it's something that a person only tells himself when he's alone in the shower looking at the mirror. It's the ultimate truth of what he or she are thinking. Another way of looking at it is something that people will tell you over a drink or in the coffee break room. They're not going to tell it to an analyst. And when we do CAMP and we try to unveil the clarity, we have a conversation with the customers, a lot of conversations. And this is something you can read between the lines. So to give an example of a hidden truth, something that you see here on the slide, we discovered that security people are not really popular. People don't take them to lunch because they always say no. No, it's a risk. No, too dangerous. No. And people are excited. They want to do something new, new innovations. No. There's a reason for that, obviously. But on a personal level, they're perceived as people who are covering their ass. If you know that about your audience, how much more powerful your content will be, because you're addressing that. And I want to give you an example. Adobe, the company, they're doing great marketing. And I want to give you an example of something that really captures the hidden truth. They did a campaign to promote their analytics system, marketing analytics, which you all know about here in this room. And I want you to look at, when you look at the video, think about the hidden truth. What is the hidden truth that they've captured? So if you can please play the video.
Yo, man, I need some clicks.
Okay. I got some choice clicks right here, yo. Impressions, page views, followers.
How about likes? You got some likes? I just need enough to get me through this quarter.
What are you in for?
Clicks.
I love that ad. It makes me laugh all the time. What do you think is the hidden truth here? Show of hands, or what is the hidden truth in this video? The need for clicks, yeah? You know, the target audience of this ad is CMOs. And CMOs in our day and age, they grew up in a traditional marketing world, where it's events, TV ads, and now suddenly it's digital marketing. It's new, and it's changing very fast. And they're asking for money from management, a lot of money. And they need to justify, where's this money going? So they need to prove it. They need analytics. They need proof. Because if they don't, they become irrelevant. And this is exactly what they've captured. They were actually very bold about it because they made fun of the customer in a good way, because it's based on the hidden truth, on the true thing that they actually need proof to show their value. Do it in every marketing campaign, every content that you do. Try to find what is the hidden truth. The heart of rule number 1 of being clear is message. You got to have a clear and strong message, because that is what will make your content great. That is, many people, they see the videos that we create and, oh, that's a cool video, it's funny. More than 60% of the time that we spent on every content is here on the message itself. Trying to crystallize the message. It's hard, it takes time, but it's worth it. So what you're looking at, and Cam does a good job in explaining that, but what you're looking at when you create a message is for the sweet spot. See, there are 3 circles, or 3 areas that you do when you look at when you develop a message. There's the Cisco competencies. What do we do best? What is a product about? There's what the competitors are doing, and there's what the customer cares about. The sweet spot that you're looking for is the yellow part here. It's something that we do and our competitors do not do, but it's something that the customer actually cares about. If you find a combination of these 3, you will have a kick-ass message. So let me share with you a small exercise that we typically do when we develop messages. It's short and it's catchy and it's really effective. And I call it the so what exercise. So are you familiar with Geico? I'm sure in this room you are, right? The people remote. Geico is one of the largest insurance companies in the States. So let's pretend we're the Geico marketing team. And we're trying to develop the message. So what I want you to do, I'm going to state some arguments. And I want you to ask me every time, so what? Until we find our message. So someone will probably raise his hand and say, we're the 2nd largest insurance company in the United States. So we have a lot of customers. So a lot of customers go to our website or call center, and they're happy. And this is where they get them pissed. So dude, that means they call us and they get cheap insurance, and it's really fast. Boom, that's your message. 15 minutes will save you 50% or more in car insurance. You got to peel the onion until you get to the core. And for those of us who work with product managers, they're in love with their products. And rightly so, because they develop them. They spend a lot of time developing them. But what they think is cool or relevant doesn't necessarily mean that that is it. You got to challenge them. You got to get them to the point where they're like, dude, this is what it does. When you get to that point, you know that's the heart of your message. So use the so what exercise for clarity. We're here in marketing technology, complex technology, and everybody talks about how we need to simplify it, right? You've all heard this, right? Simplify, use simple, simple, simple. That is true. But something you need to understand, this is why I like this quote so much. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. What do I mean by that? If you want to create a simple message and a simple story, you have to understand the nuts and bolts of the product. We spend hours and days with engineers talking about features and the competition. At the end of the day, not everything is going to be in the final product, but only if you really genuinely understand what you're talking about, then you can simplify. Don't think that simplify means that you can do that shortcut, because it's not going to work. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's one of my favorite people that I follow, and every time I watch him, it's just pure pleasure. He talks about the most complicated things on Earth, physics, stars, the universe, but he does it so simple. It's so exciting to watch. I saw a video of him on YouTube where he explains the meaning of life to a 6-year-old, and he nailed it. So he's an example. If you watch him, look how he simplifies things, but he's a professor. He knows his stuff. And finally, the last thing I want to mention around being clear, rule number 1, is that less is more. We are in the Twitter era, 140 characters. The attention span of our audience is close to 0. And I want to tell you a story. You know, to illustrate this, you know Ernest Hemingway, the American novelist, right? So he was sitting in a bar with his friends in Cuba, smoking a cigar, probably drinking scotch. They're having fun, telling them about his stories. And suddenly one of his friends is like, you know, I bet you can't write a story in 6 words. And everybody's like, yeah, no way you can write a story in 6 words. And Ernest Hemingway said, you know what? Put your money where your mouth is. Okay. People took money out of their wallets, put it on the table. And Ernest Hemingway took a napkin and a pen, and he wrote this. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. 6 words. This story can make me cry. Not here, it's not going to happen. But if you can get someone emotional in 6 words, you can sell a switch in 6 words. Always remember that story. I'm not saying it's easy. It's actually very hard, and it will take you a long time. You can't improvise this. Keep it short. So, to summarize rule number 1, start with a misperception. Know everything you can about the audience, the human being, not just the title. And spend most of your time on the message. Don't make any shortcuts. Which leads me to rule number 2. Be memorable. Are you familiar with the Purple Cow book? Some of you are? Purple Cow is a book by Seth Godin. He's a great marketeer. Also, I really encourage you to read his books or watch him online. And the story goes like this. I'm going to just simplify it for you. Imagine you're in a road trip with your kids. So you're driving in rural areas, there are trees around, and the kids are in the car, and these big highways, you're driving, and suddenly you see a cow. Oh, mommy, can I take a picture of the cow? Yeah, you stop the car, you take a picture. What a cool thing, a cow. So you continue to drive, and you see another cow, and another cow, and another cow. Nobody cares until you see a purple cow. Oh, stop the car, taking more pictures, everything starts from scratch. What am I trying to say here is, when you do marketing, there are a lot of cows out there. You have to find your purple cow. Because if you don't find your purple cow, your content is just another cow. You have to be memorable. Let me give you an example of a project we've done a few years ago. It was for a keynote. It was a keynote in Interop. And Interop is quite unique because when our executive goes on stage, he shares the stage with other companies. Like before him is Juniper, after him EMC or Dell or HP. So you really need to be memorable. You really need to stand out. So they came to our team like, how do we stand out? So my first reaction was, our executive can wear a bikini. He will definitely stand out. What is the message, right? What is the message you're trying to convey? And the message was, going back to rule 1, the message was about Internet of Things. It was the early days of IoT. So how can we make Cisco relevant to IoT in a memorable way? And we thought about it, what does everybody like? Sports. So we teamed up with the sponsorship team, and we built a basketball court on stage. Basketball court on the whole Interop stage with 2 hoops. And we invited Kyrie Irving from the Cavaliers just to say something. I'm a Warriors fan, but it's professional. It was a professional choice, and plus we didn't have a lot of options. Kyrie Irving from the Cavaliers, he played basketball with Rob Soderberry, our executive, on stage, and the idea was that they had IoT sensors on them that measures their performance. So the coach, basically the use case is that the coach knows how his athletes are performing. And we created, I want to play this short clip and show you what we've done. If you can please play the NBA clip.
On May 8th, at Interop, Las Vegas, 2 forces will collide for the battle of a lifetime. NBA All-Star Kyrie Irving versus Cisco Senior Vice President Rob Soderberry. Really?
Really? Why not?
Okay then. Don't miss the keynote of the century. Witness Cisco's latest enterprise innovations revealed. Irving, Soderberry, going head-to-head at Interop Las Vegas. It is on.
So I can tell you, I was sitting in the front row, shaking, before this started, because this could have easily, but when he got on stage, when Irving got on stage with Soderberry, when I looked back and I saw thousands of people taking their cameras off, I was like, I still have a job. That's why I'm still here today. Bill Gates does a really good job in this too. What Bill Gates does today, he's an angel. He basically helps humanity. But the things that he does, unfortunately, are not that sexy from a press point of view. It doesn't get the attention it deserves. And he always finds ways to get the attention of the press to his cause, as you see here, what he's done here. He could have just simply released a press release saying, we created a purifying water system for Africa. But he didn't. He did this. The picture and the words together made it so powerful. So I'm not trying to say that you need to save kids in Africa or bring an NBA player to your content, but what I am saying is you need to pay attention to this. How can you become memorable? It can start with a small thing as an email subject. What is the email subject? You can make it a little bit different as it doesn't look like every other email subject out there because people just won't open it. Or if you use a template for graphic design, use something that is a little bit different. It doesn't have to be completely different because you want to grab people's attention. You want the purple cow. Another point about being memorable, which I want to mention, is around numbers. Data is great. We all love data. But except if you're a really good engineer or a mathematician, for us mortals, you give us numbers, we typically really fast forget it and don't understand it. Like and some of my team members here know, if you throw numbers at me without context, I lose it. But if you use numbers with context and give them meaning, then it becomes really powerful. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, we did a campaign, a press conference for our wireless business. And what we were asked to do is to tell the market that we have sold 12.5 million access points. So the first question was, is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. What does 1.5 mean? We got to put it in context. So Lauren Friedman from my team came up with this idea. Instead of just saying what you see here on the slide, say this. Cisco has sold more access points than Britney Spears albums. What do you think was the title in the paper the day after? Or the online magazine? This. Because this is how we remember. And if you look at Apple keynotes, if you look at the really good communicators out there, they do it all the time. Politicians do it all the time as well. Put numbers in context. Another point about being memorable is the power of visuals. 90% of what people remember or look at is images. I don't know about you, but when I go to a web page and there's text, I don't even read it. I just go to the pictures. That's how I am. But apparently 90% of the population is like that. So when you do your content, think about how it's going to look visually. Our team, we create a lot of videos. And every time we create a video, we spend a lot of time thinking, what is the poster of the video? When you go to the Cisco.com homepage, how is it going to look like? This is an example of something we did for wireless a few years ago. It's not complicated, but it took thought. What I'm telling you is, think about how visually your content is going to be. And it's true for a presentation, it's true for a white paper, it's true for everything, actually. So to conclude, rule number 2, be memorable. First of all, think of ways to stand out. Don't be the regular cow. Give numbers context and use pictures and visuals. Which leads me to rule number 3, make an emotional connection. And this is the secret sauce in this stew that we're creating. Because if you can make an emotional connection with your audience, it's like you took the message that you worked so hard on and planted them in their heads. It works like magic, and it's actually scientific. There was a research that was done in the East Coast about how emotional connection creates memory. And they took 2 groups, and they connected them to this brain scanning machines. One group, they gave them just raw data. The other group, they conveyed it in a way that is more emotional. You saw the charts, the people with stories, the memory area, the excitement area in the brain was more active. And when they checked it a week later, guess which group remembered the content that they delivered? The one that they used emotions. And the best way to use an emotional connection with the audience is to tell stories. Stories is a proven recipe to create an emotional connection with your audience and to make everything memorable. Use people, use real action, use conflicts. Conflicts are great. Make it fun. It doesn't have to be serious. Because if you do all that, people will remember. You'll trigger something emotional about them, in them. What do you think the one thing that your audience cares about? One thing they care about. They care about themselves. I'm sorry if it sounds cynical, but it's true. When you create content, when you communicate, don't think about what you want to tell them. Think about them and how you're going to help them. In other words, you got to focus on the problems that you solve, not the product. Focus on the problem that you solved, not the product. This is key. We do it all the time. We make that mistakes all the time, myself included. You go straight to the product. Okay, this is the features. This is what it does. It's so cool. Wait a second. What am I solving here? Why should that person care if I'm not solving a problem? And when you look at ads, any ad, consumer ad, Those who talk about themselves, I'm not good. Those who talk about what they can do for you are successful. Another point about, and the final point about making an emotional connection is the language. I'm allergic to buzzwords. Yeah, I see some nods here. I'm allergic to buzzwords. It drives me crazy. You know, I see this every time. You sit in a green room before a presentation. The guy next to you, he's going to present before you, have a conversation. Oh, what are you going to talk about? Oh, I'm going to talk about this new product. It's twice as fast as the competition. Cool, good luck. And he goes on stage and he transforms to this robot that talks about agility and flexibility in the world-class technology with synergies for our customers and that will create a paradigm shift. What are you talking about? You just said it. Why are you using these words? Shahar on my team, it calls this the FUSS syndrome. Flexibility, FUSS, F-A-S-S. Flexibility, agility, simplicity, and scalability. Please try to avoid these words because they mean nothing and everybody uses them. Speak like a human. Speak like you speak to each other. Don't be that guy on stage that becomes a robot suddenly. Because you know what happens if you do that? Or if you don't do that? If you speak these words, you'll never be able to create an emotional connection with your audience. You're just going to be a robot. So to conclude, rule number 3, make an emotional connection. Stories. Tell stories. Magic. It's all about them. It's not about you. And speak like a human being. These are the 3 rules of storytelling. What I want to do now is give you 2 examples of projects that my team created, and then we will do a little bit of looking at people's work here in the room. Make sense? So the first one, and Jennifer, you mentioned that before, is Rick the Salesman. I want to give you a little bit of background and show you how everything we talked about just now is applied to this. So for those of you who don't know this, sales enablement is a challenging thing. If you want to train sales guys, you send them emails, delete. You send them an invitation to a webinar, delete. You make it mandatory. They come, they show up, but they multitask. It's really tough. These guys are busy. They're moving all the time. They don't have time. So we thought, how can we make this different? How can we stand out? How can we do things that is not the ordinary cow? So we created a web series that is humorous, because humor creates an emotional connection, and it's different. You know, in Cisco, doing something a little bit different, you can stand out. So you stand out, you use characters that portray real scenarios that they're facing. You use stories. The whole thing here is a story. And if they relate to that story, your audience, then the magic happens. Because then if you are memorable, if you stand out, if you use stories, suddenly just telling them the message, that's the easy part. Not to say we spend most of the time, as I said, 60% of the time of every episode on simplifying the message and find what that is. But the combination of all this creates a strong program. And when it clicked to me was when we went to GSX a few years ago, and we were presenting there as the characters, and suddenly it was really like, I didn't expect that. Sales guys came to us, and it was a group of people that started to take selfies with us, pictures. And I remember telling Stephen, what the hell is going on here? It's a marketing program. What's going on here? And then I realized they don't think about it as a marketing program. The audience sees this as something that entertains them and teaches them. So they appreciate that. So the 3 rules here that you see are applicable. Another example of a program that we created is the Innovation Series, or New Frontiers, we just launched. The story there is that we have really good innovations in Cisco, and people just don't know about it. But how do we tell the world about it? How do we let people, our technical customers, know about the cool innovations that we have in Cisco? But again, we wanted to do it differently. So first of all, being clear, we spend so much time on taking topics that are 45-minute long presentations in Cisco Live and condensing them into 3 or 4 minutes. Very difficult to do, very difficult to do. And simplifying, and iteration after iteration after iteration, a lot of work. But then how do we take this good and clear message and make it shine and make it memorable? So we brought in a host, a YouTube celebrity, really good at what he's doing. He has over 1 billion views on YouTube. That helped us stand out. And then we use humor. We use humor. Every episode has humor, and the humor is based on the customer pain, on the hidden truth. That's why it's so successful. One of the episodes, for example, talks about configuring quality of service. When we interviewed customers, they said, you know what? I'd rather go through a root canal than do quality of service. I'm like, bing, okay. That's something I can use. So we did an episode where you go. It's better to go to the. It's configuring quality of service equals going to the dentist. It's the same pain. So we might not be able to solve the dentist, but we can definitely make quality of service easier for you. So all the ingredients I just talked about are here. So if I can ask the team here to please play a short teaser from the innovation series for New Frontiers.
In the next few years, the number of things connected to the internet will surpass 30 billion. Offices are becoming crime scenes where every IoT device is a potential suspect. Where will the next intrusion come from? Through what IoT device? A smart TV? A piece of medical equipment? It could even come from something as innocuous as a light bulb. Here, check this out. Or this man's pacemaker.
I don't have a pacemaker.
You don't have a pacemaker yet. I'll start again. You can't
I
see
can't
anything?
see.
How do I get started with this?
So...
I just assumed that might be a question. Word on the street is that, sorry, tell me the question one more time.
I don't have a pacemaker.
All right, agree to disagree.
I'm having some trouble with the engines.
What? Oh,
I can't see a thing.
Wait. We can do it one more time through, yeah. I got it.
Awesome. So these are just two examples, but you'll see it in every content, every good content, even if it's a banner, if it's a white paper, every content that you create, or every communication, even a presentation, has these three rules that I just went over. So now what? Now what I would like to ask you to do, and again, I started with this, I want this to be practical for you. Every form of communication that you do, just look at what we talked about today. See if you can apply it to your own work. And I guarantee you that if you do some of the things I've just mentioned, your content and your communication is going to be much better, just by paying attention to these things. So that's for me for the first part, and I want to open it for questions from the audience, the remote, or here in the room. Doing a mic? Yeah.
So in the rules, one of them is like the memorable attribute that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So some of these titles, like you showed the Bill Gates caption, right? So
some of the titles?
The Bill Gates analogy you
the Bill
showed.
Gates title, yeah.
Cisco will not allow those kinds of titles. Many times, this is my 12th year in Cisco. I really like a lot of what you said. So there are some exceptions to some of these situation handling. So how do you overcome the Cisco objections?
It's a really good question, and it's the hidden truth. Because you're right, it's not always easy to do things that are out of the norm, and using the purple cow. Someone once told me, your cows are too purple. I heard that before. But you know what? If you believe that this is the right thing to do, and if you believe it's going to create impact, you can convince people that that's the way to go. And I think today, with today's leadership in marketing, I think there's much more room to do these kind of things. I will tell you even more than that, the expectation is that we create more of these kind of content. Sometimes it's a dialogue, right? And sometimes, you come up with an idea. Going back to Rick the Salesman, I nearly lost my job one time because of it. I'm not going to repeat that story now. But sometimes you need to take it back. Sometimes you need to fight for your things. But don't be discouraged just because of the naysayers. That's a rule for life, I would say. Answers? Okay. Questions for maybe the online?
Yeah, we have two.
Cool.
One of them regarding the Brittany example.
Brittany?
She's a famous person, right? And so how do we get permission to use those images? And do you get in trouble for using the images of famous people?
We did not use the image. We used just the title. So this is actually a good question, because many times we want to use a song that everybody loves, that will really work well with your content, but it's expensive, so you may find something different. There are, and the legal team is really good at that, helping us find the right way to do things that are legal and not breaching copyrights. But in this specific case, we just used the name. So I don't think there's a copyright just to say that we sold more than, I don't think there's any issue with that. Or just ask for forgiveness later, but I did not say that. Is it recorded? Yes, next question.
Yeah, I've got one more here. Talking about the emotional care abouts, it's pretty clear that that's relevant in business to consumer marketing, but Cisco's a B2B company, and our customers just care about how much money we can help them make. So how do you connect to their emotions? How does that part apply?
You know, I saw a research once that said that at least 95% of our customers are also human. At least 95. It's true. When I said what I said earlier, obviously, people want to save money. People want to be more secured. People want to be have good talent in their workspace. But they're people. They're also people, and they have feelings. Yeah, I know it's shocking. CIOs have feelings. That's true. They want to be successful in their job. They want to be relevant in their job, just like you, just like me. I'm not saying we gotta write poems and make it like, you know, extra emotional. But if you tap into that emotion, you will get really good results. That's all I'm saying. And the proof points could be the business attributes. Yes, I will make you more relevant. How? By helping you save costs. But I will make you more relevant by helping you save costs, and not the other way around.
And we have one more. So how do you balance a simple human tone with being perceived as intelligent and as an expert? Should we just default to being human?
Should we look at, the first thing that comes to mind is President Obama. He, and I'm not talking about political opinions at all, but nobody will argue he's a good speaker, and he gets you emotionally. Does someone think he's not professional or not? Again, I'm putting aside, I'm seeing faces here, I'm putting aside the political views. Look at it from a professional point of view. You can definitely be professional and approachable and human. Many good leaders do that. Actors do that all the time. In business, you see that all the time. So I don't see a conflict. Does this answer your question? Or it's actually online, but I actually think it will make you more professional, and your message will become stronger if you are human. And if you use a human tone, because people want to see a person. They spot robots like that. It looks fake. Rob.
On this point, do you mind if I tell a quick story?
Oh, sure. Come here. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Sloan, and this has been a great session, Yaniv, by the way.
Thank you.
I don't mean to
Thank
jump
you.
on stage, but probably 10 years ago, I was in a presentation training. It was Jerry Weissman, for those of you who know it. Small group. There were just 4 or 5 of us there. And I was there with my boss, a guy named John Yen, and I was there with a former Gartner analyst, Mark Leary. And we were having basically this same topic. And John, who was a championship debater from the state of California, was a super smart guy. And he's like, but you know, sometimes I just want to be like, but my product has bam, I win. And Mark, the former analyst, said, and the more you say, the less I believe you, every single time. Yeah. You say what you mean concisely and confidently, oh, then I know you actually know your stuff, and I might ask you for those details. But if you throw them out there like that, I just think you're trying to steamroll me.
Yeah.
10 years ago, still sticks with me.
Yeah.
We're having this same conversation. Yeah. So there are times when you do need to get into the details, but when you lead with them, you lose them. So.
Thank you. That's a really good story. And you know, it reminds me of Simon Sinek. He was here a while ago. I'm sure you know him. He always say, start with the why. That's so true. Start with the why, then tell them how. Why should I care? Oh, I care. Tell me more. You got to pull them in. You can't start with, this is what I do, this is how good I am, bam, 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 buy. I'm not going to buy. Why would I buy? More questions online or in the room? Yeah.
Where do you find the inspiration to come up with innovative content?
Inspiration, that's a topic I love to talk about. What I've learned, and this is personal, what I'm telling you, every person is different. When I try to force it, it doesn't come. It comes when I take a shower, when I play with my kids. Suddenly they say something, oh my God, Mika, you're right. What? No, nothing. And it registers. You walk, inspiration comes. You can't really force it. And the painful part is you can't really speed it up. I hope my boss is watching this. But you can't really speed it up because inspiration comes. But if you follow the methodologies I just went through today, it will make it much easier. Annette?
So
I have a follow-up on that. So how often do you bring personal experience into the storytelling? And I think people feel like it comes so easily to you, you know, even if it's in the shower or wherever. But when someone's saying, well, I'm trying to do a marketing piece for a router and I just can't think of anything creative, how can we pull in our own experience
really
to
good
do that?
So the secret is, I think, surround yourself with people that can do things that you're not as good at. And I do it all the time. Use the methodology and follow the process. Yes. Use the methodology and follow the process to have some structure. And if you're really good at messaging and you're not good in creative, that's fine. Make sure you get a really, really good message and then bring in people that are good in creative. Or the other way around. I work with people that are super creative. They don't know anything about routers or switches. I actually love working with these people because they come up, going back to your point, come up with wild ideas, and sometimes I need to pull them back, or sometimes like, oh, I love this, and we brainstorm. Nobody can do everything. That's the power of teams, I think. So pick the people. Everybody has these people around him. People are good at certain things. You bounce around ideas, and it's just, there the magic happens. Sometimes me and my wife, we talk at night, just after the kids go to sleep. I bounce ideas with her, and the magic happens.
When it comes to kind of based on what she's saying, how to explain these things, you know, because not all of our customers are very technical. They're just trying to make money or save energy and they don't care. A lot of them probably don't understand or care about the products themselves and how they work. And do you find that maybe using metaphors is a good way to explain it without talking down to people?
Yeah.
You know, like how do you explain these concepts, or do you?
The innovation series that I just showed you is a pure example of how metaphor was the driver for the whole thing. The metaphor of the dentist or the plane that crashed, that's about you can't see things on your network, so you'll crash. That is the way, but the metaphor has to be tied to the emotional part, which is the pain. I can't see what's going on my network. I'm being attacked. I don't know what's going on. I'm flying blind. Metaphor. You got them. You have the connection. But now give them proof, because they're smart people. They're really smart people. And they're also very sarcastic people. Very sarcastic. Our audience, super sarcastic. Cynical people, no BS kind of people. But if you get them on the pain, then you give them reasonable proof, because we will give you visibility to your network because of point A, point B, point C. This is what Gartner says about point A. This is what customer stories, here are customer stories are using solution about point B. Prove it. Give them data. Reasons to believe, we call it in camp. But you can start with the pain and the emotion. And I don't think it's looking down at people at all. If you're genuine, it works. Be genuine. Don't try to be genuine.
We have one more online, and we have actually over 100 people watching.
Wow, 100 people.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the question here is, innovation comes with mistakes. What are some mistakes that you made that might encourage us that progress is possible?
That is so true. So my team is here, and they know. If you do innovation, two things will happen. People will say no, and you'll screw up. The secret is how to, ignore the people who say no. With conviction, go to your cause, and recognize that some of the things you're going to do are not going to be successful. So the question was, how do you, again, I just went through it and I forgot. What is the second part of the question? How?
Second part of the question is, what are some mistakes that you've made?
Oh, some of the mistakes that I've done. When I talked about nearly being fired, that was a good example. When we try to stretch the creative too much and it didn't feel the culture, my mistake, I learned from it, never did it again. Sometimes you have a good idea that makes you laugh and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be the best product I've ever done, the best content I've ever created. You release it online, the metric sucks. And these comments, like knives, it happens. It happens, but you learn from it. And one thing that I always do, and it's painful, I show the work before I release it, before it's too late. Like show a script or show a content. What do you think? And it's not easy because you're exposed. You're sitting there and people are criticizing your work. But what I've learned over time, they're criticizing the work. They're not criticizing you. And you got to remember that. Don't be defensive. Sometimes I work with creative people and they're arguing with me about if I give them feedback. And I'm not saying you're doing something wrong or you're not talented. No way. I'm talking about the specific content. So really try to hear the naysayers and try to hear why they're saying this. That doesn't mean you need to give up, going back to your question. But listen to them, because they may have a point. You might disagree, but listen. I think that's the takeaway from all this. Listen to them.
This next question is actually relevant to sharing that script and getting that feedback. How do you solve the too many chefs in the kitchen problem when everybody wants their say and sometimes it all ends up looking like the same old stuff?
Too many chefs in the kitchen? That happens here in Cisco? I don't know what this person is talking about. Whew, that's a tough one. I just think at the end of the day, if there are too many chefs in the kitchen, and I know why you're laughing, it's not going to work. I honestly think, and this is what I'm trying to do more and more, clearly define roles and responsibilities when you enter a project. Because I really value people's opinion, and those who work with me, they know I'm fanatic about getting feedback before the content is released, because when it's out, it's out. I can't control it. I'm fanatic about that. But there has to be one person who is the leader, collects the feedback, decide what works and what doesn't. In theory, that works. Sometimes executives are involved, so it's a little bit more difficult. So what I found is executives, it's the best way to work with executives is to involve them early on. You involve them early on, you get their feedback, and you will find a creative way to express their feedback. Because most of the time, executives, they will tell you what they want to accomplish from a business point of view. They won't tell you, okay, I don't like that joke in the script on that line. Usually it's not that. And they really, 99% of the time, they really have a good point. So listen to them and try to define clear roles and responsibility as you develop your content. That's my best advice. Okay, so what I want to do now is quickly, we have 10 minutes, quickly review some of the work that you guys submitted beforehand. And I know some people are remote as well. So first of all, guys, thank you. I talked about being exposed in the comments, remember that? So the fact that you submitted work that we can look at it together, that says a lot about courage, and I hope this will actually be beneficial for all of you. So Thomas, you're the first one. I don't know, I guess not here in the room, maybe remote. You submitted this, and I deliberately want to start with this, because this is basically a report, right? A report, not something that's supposed to be sexy. But when I looked at it the first time I've seen this, I was like, my first response was, whoa. That was my first response. What are you trying to say? A lot of information. Where is the insight and where is the data? That was my first response. Because you probably, when you created this, you spent a lot of hours on this. So you know how to distinguish between the important things and the less important things. Now, I don't know the context of this, so maybe I'm wrong, but when you do a report like this, think about what is the essence of what you're trying to say and what is the conclusion of what you're trying to convey. And you can support it with a lot of data. This goes back to what I said earlier, put numbers give context to numbers, give numbers meaning. Here, and you might have wonderful insights here, but it's getting lost. And if you're going to show it to an executive who's like, next, 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 I don't have time, make it easy for them. Don't make them work hard. Because I'm sure there's a lot of good insights here. Any feedback in the room on this? Okay. Kathy, you submitted this paragraph. Cisco DNA for healthcare, networking made simple, smart, and automated. It's at the heart of the healthcare innovation. See the new network. So again, I don't know the context of this, but what I'm assuming, are you in the room, by the way? No.
I'm Kathy, but it was actually submitted by one of our new hires, Sydney Abbott.
Sydney, okay, in RTP, okay. So again, thank you for submitting this. To me, what I'm understanding from this is that you're trying to sell the network to healthcare customers. Now, when you say, this is where my alarm goes off, simple, smart, and automated, you can probably say it about everything. You know, I have an iPhone. It's simple, smart, and automated. My neighbor has a Tesla. It's simple, smart, and automated. Everything is simple, smart, and automated. What's unique here? What are you trying to say? What is the misconception you're trying to address? If you're talking about what is the pain you're trying to talk about, if you're talking to healthcare customers, what is their pain? I can assume, because I know a little bit about this, just a little, that they're having a lot of IoT devices coming into the network, and it's freaking complicated to connect them and secure them. So if that's the pain, talk about the pain. We can make network segmentation in seconds instead of days or weeks. Oh, really? That's my pain. Or if you can talk about the healthcare devices, look for the pain, and the adjectives don't necessarily describe or will get the attention you want. Make sense to people in the room? Or any feedback? Or Jillian in RTP. Hi, Jillian. And not in RTP. I did a mistake again. Where are you now? Denver. Okay, the office. Hi, Jillian. And Jillian, I wanted to show a story, a video that she created, and really, again, ties well to the 3 rules of storytelling. So I'll let you describe it and tell us when we can play the video itself.
Describe the story, Yaniv?
Give us a little bit of background. What were we trying to accomplish? And what was the thought process? And then we can actually play the video.
Okay, so the man on the screen right now is Jose Bogarin Solano, and he is the Chief Innovation Officer at Altus Consulting. And he wrote a letter to Susie Wee and the Cisco DevNet team, basically talking about how grateful he was for his experience at Cisco Live in the DevNet zone. And he was grateful for the opportunity to learn about the APIs and different learning labs and grow his business with the software they created to integrate with Cisco hardware. So we created this story, which is a story of transformation. And the cool thing about it is that Jose and his company was on the brink of bankruptcy. And with this software they were able to create, they won Cisco's LATAM ISV Partner of the Year award in 2016. And so that's the story we wanted to tell. We wanted to pull that human element out, and we wanted to show people that Jose had 2 classes in college in 2002 or something in software development, and was able to learn and grow in software and create this technology. So that's the story, and you'll learn a little bit more.
So let's play the video. This is a really popular video that you did an amazing job, Jillian. Let's play the video and talk a little bit how this ties. Think about it while you watch it, how this ties to the 3 rules I just mentioned. So if you can please play the video.
This is a story of transformation, where one plane flight, one social pass, and one crummy hotel room changed the course for one man and his company.
My name is Jose Bogarin Solano. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Altus, a company I co-founded 9 years ago.
In a letter to the DevNet team, Jose retraced his journey of taking Altus from the brink of bankruptcy to winning Cisco's ISV Partner of the Year.
The US recession hit us hard in 2014, and our company was going bankrupt. We heard about this new Cisco developer community called DevNet, and went to the Cisco Live in 2014 and purchased the social pass ticket and booked the cheapest hotel in San Francisco that I can get to.
As in every great story, it's the milestones that define the journey.
I started walking 1.5 miles from that hotel to the conference. When I arrived there, I learned about the DevNet zone. It was amazing for me to be learning about APIs and software with so many experts in the industry. Then I got back home and talked to my co-founders and say, hey, maybe this is the way for us to drive business outcomes using Cisco technology, but also improve the solution with our own software, which became a huge success.
The application they developed gave their clients the freedom to focus on their business instead of their technology platform.
Before, we were losing a lot of business, but now that we're complementing Cisco hardware with our own software solutions, we start winning more deals and providing more business value to our customers. That moment that really changed our company was DevNet in 2014.
Jose's letter proves that through hard work and determination, anything is possible.
We live in a world where we are always rushing to meet deadlines, to deliver solutions and to figure out the work-life balance. DevNet changed my life. I will always be grateful. And hopefully this story expresses that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Jillian did here was take something technical, going back to the question that someone asked earlier, a community, APIs, targeting engineers, and she found a human element in this. How this person really generally changed his life because of DevNet. And this was a phenomenal success. So we have one more, given the time, and Sangeeta, if you can please come on stage. And talk about, your case is another example. This is specifically for written content.
Yes.
Banners for
Yes.
social media, and how we started from robotic buzzwords, singing all the alarms, into something that was hugely successful in social media.
Absolutely. Yep,
Okay.
I could share that.
Okay.
Hi, so our goal was, with the Wolverine launch coming up and DNA, we wanted to create social content that was engaging and relevant, and essentially created a series. So show customer stories in a way that's relevant to our audience, IT directors. We needed to make sure they had a hook. So these IT people are bombarded.
This is the one that people see, so just
Oh,
so you know. This is
there
the
you
next
go.
slide. So, yeah.
Got it, got it. Our IT folks are bombarded with content. It's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and they're just scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. How do we make them pause when they see our content? So that was one of the goals. And thirdly, we wanted to make sure that there was a consistent theme that said DNA, right, amongst all the Cisco content. And here's where we started. We had a very expensive, reputable vendor work on this. And this is what the very first draft looked like. And if we look at it, we say, well, it's pretty, but it's not really relevant to the customer. Will the customer care about this content? Not really.
Yeah, you're saying people stock photography of people pointing at a screen is not unique?
Saying, wait,
Exactly.
what? And what are they looking at? Are they looking at chimpanzees on the moon? Or are they
Award-winning, sensible building science program. That will take me probably a week to understand what that means, right?
It took me a while. It still takes me a while. I have to kind of sort
So
through
what
it
did you
and
do?
parse through it. So what we did was we went back to the vendor. We challenged the vendor. We didn't just say, you're the expert, you know what you're doing, let's just take your first iteration. We went back and we said, no, let's go back a little bit. And when I say iterative, I mean many iterations and many try not to be defensive moments. And we said, why should IT care? Really, when they're looking at our content, why should they care? What's in it for me, right? Not just numbers, but save 5%. Okay, the IT director's thinking, money, 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 cha-ching. All of a sudden, they're going to pause at this content. And then we want to show multiple examples of what DNA has to offer across industries. And we came up with an animated GIF, and here's how it goes. Can your Wi-Fi turn off the heat in your classroom? All of a sudden, this kind of causes a pause and say, wait, what? My Wi-Fi is going to, yeah.
Makes you think,
Like,
yeah.
What are you talking about? So we get the pause. Then we say, an actual customer saved 5% on energy costs. So that's where the money, 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 cha-ching comes in. And also, we're talking about a real life example. We're not just boasting some random content. Right. And at the same time, we're talking about energy costs and green, right? This emissions, that's a very big deal amongst universities, or IT in general. And then we end it with, I don't have the last slide here, but we end it with, well, how do we solve this? The last slide is DNA solutions. And so we took this and we created a series.
And it was hugely successful on social.
It was.
Start with the hook. Wi-Fi turns your
heat off.
Heat off?
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, how does it do that? Oh, here's the proof. But start with something interesting. Don't start with a 5% because everybody has 5%. Their own 5%, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Thank you, Anita. Thank you very much. So, unfortunately, Angela, we don't have time for your part, but let's take it offline because I do have feedback on your content. Guys, I really appreciate your time. I hope that I helped you and gave you productive tools to become a better communicator and do better content. And if anybody has a question or wants to ask anything, you can find me. I'm here. So thank you very much.
We really like your idea. We want to make it happen. What do you need?
So it is an ultra crazy race that we're taking part in.
We're all on the same team here. It's completely inclusive. It's for everyone.
This helps to create an emotional connection between the brand and the customer. It's very cool.
Then move quickly in a controlled fashion.
You need art and creativity to create that vision.